All right, so we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our June member experience inside the collection with the curators. I'm Giselle Holloway, the Director of Membership and Visitor Experience at the Newark Museum of Art. Thank you all for joining us today for this very special Zoom presentation and conversation with our curators as they unveil the latest additions to our collection. You're in for a real treat. The presentations will last for about 40 to 45 minutes, after which we will have a Q&A. So if you have a question, please write it in the chat and also include the name of the person you're directing your question to. You should also know that this event is being recorded and will be shared with our other museum members later this month. So before we begin, I'd like to start with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the traditional homelands of the Lenape, also known as the Delaware, upon which the Newark Museum of Art resides. And now I'd like to turn it over to Catherine Evans, who is our interim co-director and CEO. Go ahead, Catherine.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Giselle. It's wonderful to be with you all today virtually. I'm exactly 1 week and 2 days into my new role as the search is underway for the next director of the museum. I will say my heart will always be in curatorial with this great team you're going to hear from today. I'm going to give you a brief overview of how we approach collection, what we call collection refinement. And it is a three-prong approach by which we acquire art, we deaccession artworks, and we are deep in the process of repatriating the artworks that should not be in our collection. So I want to say that with let's see, 130,000 artworks in our collection, we really are extremely strategic and intentional about what we add. We're going to start with acquisitions to the collection. In other words, all of the curators, as they think about their respective concentration, areas of concentration, really think about the utility of an artwork that might come into the collection. They have developed 5-year collecting plans. We are now in the second of our 5-year project. And that is really how we guide, how we all think about what we want, what are those criteria that we want to address. We think about utility. We don't want something to come into the collection only to go into storage. We have only a small percentage of our artworks are on view at any given time. And so we really want to be thinking about what does that collection fit? How might it enhance our galleries? There's many steps to acquiring anything, and it starts with curators discussing a proposed artwork. It goes through an evaluation by conservators and registrars, and ultimately the director would say, okay, let's go with this. And then it gets proposed to a subset of the board known as the Acquisitions and Collections Committee, meets twice a year. And this is the opportunity for curators to really build their case, present their case for whatever they are proposing. I want to talk a little bit about deaccessioning. That's the second prong in this strategy, and that is the process by which we remove an artwork from the collection that no longer, and it has to meet some strict criteria. It's intentionally laborious process. The criteria being condition, authenticity. Is it a duplicate? Is it no longer kind of working in supporting the goals of the collection. And so here you see this image of a recent auction. When we deaccession artworks, they always go to public auction for full transparency. This was the cover of the most recent auction, Asian Art Week auction at Sotheby's, wherein we deaccessioned and sold about 10 Chinese porcelain objects that really were duplicated in our collection, and we, of course, kept the superior object. The other aspect that we want to talk about just briefly is repatriation, and that is the process by which we respectfully return human remains. I think there's a slide that we might go to. Here we go. Human remains, funerary objects, sacred objects, and objects of cultural patrimony. We have made tremendous progress working with the NAGPRA program. And you see the acronym is spelled out here, Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, established in 1995, a federal act. And we are, thanks to some volunteers and some really diligent registrars, we are making some significant progress in getting to that goal of repatriating some of these objects. So with that, I want to turn it over to our great team, and starting with Hanon Girma.
Thank you, Catherine. Can we go to the next slide, please? Hello, everyone. My name is Hanon Girma, and I am the Associate Curator of Arts of Global Africa. I joined the museum in this position just over 3 years ago in 2022. And I'm excited to share this latest artwork to enter our Arts of Global Africa collection with you today. It is a sonic sculpture by Bahamian conceptual artist Tavares Strawn titled Venus Rosetta Tharp. And as Catherine mentioned, our acquisitions are very intentional, and we take time to consider how well they fit and enhance our existing collections. Sometimes the process of evaluating and recommending an artwork for the museum's collection can take months or even years. And I think this acquisition illustrates how deeply considered our acquisitions are. Strawn is an artist whose work I'd been introduced to several years ago, but I took the time necessary for me to really understand his approaches and appreciate his genius and find an artwork by him that would really fit well in our collection. He is an internationally recognized artist who received a MacArthur Genius Award in 2022. But that alone was not a reason to acquire his work. He's something of a Renaissance man with a complex and challenging and multifaceted body of work. And he works in a wide range of materials. So it was a while before I came across this artwork that I found complements and is aligned with our existing collections and narratives, as well as my collecting plan on various levels. For starters, I had been thinking about ways of activating our Arts of Global Africa galleries and bring sound into that space. So when I learned Strawn debuted a new body of work of sonic sculptures at his most recent solo exhibition in New York City, I saw an opportunity. And of everything I saw in of everything in the exhibition, I was most intrigued by this piece, which I found to not only be visually striking, but also sonically evocative and meditative. And its title also signaled a story I was familiar with, and it signaled its conceptual depth. And I'll say more on that, on the concepts behind it in the next slide. Next slide, please. So from that initial intrigue, I conducted further research and learned more about the concepts and ideas that the artist was engaging with in creating this artwork. I had also internal discussions with our conservator and other colleagues to assess how able we are to meet the artwork's display, as well as long-term care and storage needs. And given that the piece is comprised of electrical components and is overall materially unconventional, this was a particularly important step I had to take. So now we'll play a clip so you can see and hear it in action. Then I'll explain the ideas behind it. The full score runs about 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and it pauses for 3 minutes between loops. But in the interest of time, we'll only play a few seconds here. So go ahead, please, Giselle. Thank you, Giselle. So conceptually, Venus Rosetta Tharpe is an exploration of the historical evolution of music through the self-playing score you just heard, which bridges past and present. 4 of the strings on the instruments, known as an adungu, which is deeply rooted in African musical traditions, are activated to evoke ancestral origins of rhythm and melody and their development through time. The self-playing nature of the piece transforms the instrument into a storyteller that embodies the unseen forces shaping musical evolution. Namely, at the core of the sculpture is Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who is a pivotal figure in music history and serves as its spiritual anchor with her legacy resonating through the vibrations of the adungu strings. Sister Rosetta Tharpe has mostly been unsung in mainstream narratives, and only in recent years has she started receiving recognition as the godmother of rock and roll. And so by centering this trailblazing Black woman and recontextualizing her legacy within a broader African musical tradition, Venus Rosetta Tharpe makes audible the often overlooked connections that define our musical heritage. In the context of our museum, the instrument that is physically centered, the adungu, will also be in direct dialogue with historical musical instruments already in our collection. And one of those is actually currently on display in the introduction section of our Arts of Global Africa galleries. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And so with that, my plan is for this new acquisition to serve as the opening experience of our Arts of Global Africa galleries, providing an invitation to our expansive vision of African art and replacing the totemic ceramic pieces currently on display at the front of the gallery. You can see here a mock-up of what the artwork scale and positioning will be like, but we could possibly do a more elaborate installation with perhaps some seating nearby and maybe a backdrop with some color that would accentuate the piece, as well as an accompanying QR code that would link to videos of Sister Rosetta Tharpe performing. And all of this is to be determined, including the exact installation date, but I'm aiming for it to go on view this fall. So be on the lookout for this forward-looking multisensory experience coming soon. And now I'll turn it over to Atika.
Thanks, Hanon. Good afternoon. I'm Atika Ali, Associate Curator, Arts of Global Asia. I've been with the museum since January 2023. So you heard Hanon talk about the relationship she has with the gallery to finally decide on the right artwork to purchase. In the case of this artwork's acquisition, it involved a gallery, but also 2 art fairs. This is Afifa Leiby's white kerchief, acquired in 2024. So the story began with Catherine Evans and Trisha Laughlin-Bloom's visit to Art Expo in Chicago. And I'm sure everybody knows about art fairs, but they are typically like 2 or 3 day conventions that brings together art galleries from around the world into one space. So Trisha and Catherine saw Leiby's work at the booth of London-based Kristen Yalayarda Gallery. And so while they were there, I got a message from Trisha about her paintings. Not this particular work wasn't on display there. At that moment, I wasn't quite sure. But soon afterwards, I started researching her and her practice, and I shortlisted a few options to acquire. I talked to the gallery and they agreed to bring a couple of paintings, including this one, to New York for the Armory Show, another art fair. So after seeing the options, I decided to propose White Kerchief. Giselle, we can go to the next slide. So when I proposed the painting, I had read about Leiby's lifelong struggles, and I thought of presenting it within a theme exploring the melancholic hero, along with 2 other acquisitions I've made. But after acquiring White Kerchief, I met Leiby over Zoom and then heard the full story. It's about a woman's honor and how that is dependent on the appearance of red stains on a handkerchief or a bed sheet after the wedding night. If there isn't any blood, as is the case for this woman, she's not considered a virgin and basically loses her honor. This means her death, whether literally or metaphorically. We can go to the next slide, Giselle. So while I've yet to carry that particular themed installation, due to workflow at the museum and other considerations, I've proposed that we place Leiby's work in one of the niches in the vaulted gallery. And what you see here is a mock-up that Tim Winterberg, our senior exhibition designer, drew up. We can go to the next slide, Giselle. So this is a closer view. You can see that the painting is large enough to hold that space, and its graphic quality should intrigue visitors as they enter the museum. When they get closer, they'll notice all the details, and we hope that seeing this work from the Arts of Global Asia collection will encourage visitors to head up to the 3rd floor to see more. And so, you should expect to see this painting up in August or around that time. So thank you for your interest. And we can go to the next slide, Giselle, and I will pass it on to Amy.
Thank you, Athika. Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Simon Hopwood, Associate Curator of Decorative Arts, and I've been at the museum since early 2018, about 7.5 years in this role. So I'm delighted to speak with you today about a new acquisition that will be installed in the Contemporary Craft Gallery this fall. Some of you may know Beau McCall and his button-centric work, especially as his necklaces are available in the museum shop. Recently, he has received great interest and recognition through a solo exhibition, Buttons On, that opened at the Fuller Craft Museum in Brockton, Massachusetts in March of 2024. Several American museums have acquired and exhibited his work, and in the slide on the left, you can see Beau McCall with one of his artworks at the Museum of Art and Design in New York, and I believe it's still on view there, but multiple museums have been collecting his work. McCall has been working with buttons as clothing adornment since the late 70s and received attention from Women's Wear Daily and the fashion world in the 1990s. In the past 15 years, McCall has further developed his personal button process and has expanded his range of artwork beyond wearable art to adding sculptural works to his process. Overall, he elevates Black culture through creations of layers of carefully selected buttons. These artworks tell stories of elements and objects of Black life, often denigrated outside of their community. McCall infuses his work with the joy and pain that comes with these experiences. As Hanon noted, and Athika and Catherine, the acquisition process is very intentional and takes some time and involves getting to know the artist as well as their body of work. I had an early conversation with Beau and his partner, muse, and curator, Solio, about Beau's artwork on a pandemic-induced Zoom studio visit in early 2021. The work spoke to me immediately, offering strong connections with the museum's decorative arts and global collections, with the museum's longstanding interest in craft as art and of telling diverse stories through everyday objects. And as Catherine mentioned, this always thinking about our 5-year collecting plans and gaps in the collection. While the museum team was very interested, and as you can see here, other museums began collecting and exhibiting Beau's work, there was a small project here that took a lot of my attention, which you may know as the Ballantine House. But throughout that project, I kept pondering Beau's work and how it really should be a part of the museum's collection, how to find a place for his work here. As the Ballantine House reopened, Tricia Bloom, who will speak next, and I attended the opening of Buttons On at the Fuller Craft Museum. Seeing all of Beau's work together and the way he makes his vision visible through buttons, the time was really right for considering including his work. And there were several hood classic do-rags, of which you can see our commission here. There were on view in Buttons On, but the exhibition will travel to start in Brockton and travel to 3 more venues over several years, and we were much too impatient to wait that long. And we also wanted something fresh and new, and that we could work with the artist. And so we proceeded with a commission with the artist for a unique Beau McCall do-rag. And for context, McCall transforms an everyday shoulder-length garment for Black male hair care into a celebratory garment or ceremonial regalia. A do-rag is a close-fitting cloth that is stretched across the forehead and tied at the back of the neck. It's usually worn by men, but not always, and it's a protective garment, preventing breakage, maintaining natural hair oils, and preserving wave or braid patterns when sleeping. Since the 1970s, do-rags have been worn as a fashion and even a protest garment, given sports and school bans against them, which continues a longstanding white American cultural, historical denigration and control of Black hair. In opposition to that, rap and hip hop musicians, basketball, and other sports players have popularized and elevated them both as a garment of personal style and of Black pride. Here, now finally talk about the acquisition, which you can see in the image, but here a dense layer, Bo uses in most of his works, a dense layer of flat buttons, in this case clear, over blue fabric. And so that flat layer of those buttons creates a base on which he applies an additional layer of scattered flat mirror and round ball-like clear buttons. And you can see some in the detail image of the head at the top. He also stacks buttons, as you can see, across the forehead and uses them in other ways. And then in the close-up where you can see the center back, these are also ceramic buttons highlighting black hair care products and combs. While the do-rag won't move in the gallery installation, you can just imagine the shimmering reflections as light hits this multi-layered surface. And I'm already in conversation with Tim Wittenberg, this installation's designer, about how we can really activate that visual activity. The title, Hood Classic Ball and Ice Do-Rag, is another layer of McCall reclaiming the Black community and neighborhoods through the series title, Hood Classic. Again, reclaiming something that has often, talking about hoods can be a very negative thing in American media and culture. And so reclaiming that. McCall also celebrates Black and hip hop culture through the, and Black culture in general through the title Ball and Ice Do-Rag, where the word balling could refer to basketball, living a good life with great style, dancing, clubbing, house balls, and also the ice of sparkling diamonds. So all of these elements are very carefully reflected in the buttons McCall has selected. And so his work is really holistic from the title to the physical object. Next slide, please. So the Ball and Ice Do-Rag will claim center stage in the fall rotations in the Contemporary Craft Gallery. You can see the current installation along the south wall in the upper right image. Those artworks will all rotate off view and will be replaced with McCall's Do-Rag, and it will be flanked by the Preston Singletary Tlingit chest on the left and Beatrice Wood's gold luster ceramic chalice on the right. Really, all three objects celebrate and bring reverence to their communities and culture, whether it's ceremonial, religious, or personal adornment. So again, the long train of the Ball and Ice Do-Rag, the multiple bows of the tie at the nape of the neck, and the shimmering buttons transform an everyday garment into this elegant form of regalia, really signifying nobility or high position and power, respect and reverence. You can also think about wedding veils or priest robes or evening ensembles, any number of objects and adornment to signify this celebration. And until the spring rotations, visitors will be able to view Beau McCall's Do-Rag in conversation with the objects on view, as you can see in the lower right, in Native Artists of North America, with the feather headdress and Windy Red Star's foxy deer. As with all objects, things need to come off view for their protection, but there'll be a brief window that the visitors will be able to experience both installations together. So the conversations that began with the artist several years ago amongst the curatorial and exhibition and registrars team will also lead to, we hope, kind of abstract conversations between the objects and actual discussions and conversations between you, other members, and the visitors' galleries, all through this very exciting commission with Beau McCall. So on that note, I will pass the baton to Tricia. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, and hello, everybody. My name is Tricia Laughlin Bloom, and I am the Interim Deputy Director for Collections and Curatorial Strategies and Senior Curator of American Art. I have been at the museum since 2015, so about 10 years. And it's a pleasure to have this opportunity to go a little deeper than we often do on why we make acquisitions and what kinds of things we're looking for. And so we've looked at purchases, we've looked at commission with Amy's Beau McCall. And now we're going to look at some gifts that we have recently accepted into the collection that we're very excited about. The Oxfeld family, based in South Orange, but Emil and Edith very much associated with Newark as well. Recent passing of Emil, daughters Nancy and Ellen approached the museum and offered us the opportunity to review the collection that Emil and Edith had gathered in their lifetime, which is really quite extraordinary. And I'm going to show you the works that we've selected, and they're now part of the collection. As you can see, if you look at the bottom line there, you'll see the acquisition numbers 2025. So this started late last fall. We were approached, and through multiple conversations and visits with the family, we made this selection. And I want to acknowledge that the American Art Department at the museum consists of myself and also Elena Munoz Rodriguez, who's our assistant curator of Latinx and Latin American art, who could not be here today. So I just wanted to acknowledge that she was a big part of this acquisition process as well. So the two of the works on paper that you see on the left here, Jacob Lawrence, Steelworkers from 1946, and Charles White, Dawn of Hope, 1952, both extraordinary works by major figures in American art. And in both cases, we have works by these artists, but we have works on paper. So having more works on paper is, and again, of a certain date and quality, are really important to us in order to keep our rotations really robust and fresh. So in the case of Jacob Lawrence, I actually, in this position for 10 years, had my eyes out for another early Jacob Lawrence painting from the 30s or 40s, and they're just not that easy to come by. This one is really it's fantastic example of his style, crossing between very celebrating workers, but crossing between abstraction and figuration in a way that really has made him really a beloved figure in American art and also African American art. With Charles White, we have one drawing by Charles White in the collection, and so it's quite different from this one. So we're excited to have that variety to present. And our plan is that at our museum, each department does rotations or changes in the galleries pretty much once a year. So we weren't able to get these works out for this year's rotation, but have a plan to put Steelworkers in our Harlem Renaissance Gallery in Seeing America next summer. If we could go to the next slide, Giselle. So hopefully you're familiar with we have a wonderful collection of African American art that we highlight with this permanent stop on the Harlem Renaissance, and we rotate every year because we have a lot of works on paper. So this is where you will see the Steelworkers starting next summer. And when I say next summer, it's usually June or July. We have to, again, be flexible with our workflow. And going to the next slide. So in addition, I do want to comment on the incredible quality of this particular private collection. Emil Oxfeld was the founder, so we'll see if I get this right, the founder of the ACLU in New Jersey, or the president, one or the other. Nancy's going to correct me. And very much activists. They collected what they loved, but also they collected contemporary art for them. And I want to point out that these are three major artists that we really need in our collection. We have a small but growing collection of Latinx and Latin American art. So this is the first painting, for instance, by David Alfaro Siqueiros that we are going to have in our collection. Thank you, Nancy. Email founded the ACLU in New Jersey, which is incredible. Incredible legacy among other accomplishments. And of course, wonderful early work by Rufino Tamayo. We have Tamayo's work in the collection, but nothing this early, not this type of subject matter, which Elena and I are looking forward to including as soon as possible. We're thinking about it for next year. And then, of course, a wonderful beautiful line drawing by Diego Rivera, Hacienda Scene, which has got this really rich narrative details that we're looking forward to researching and interpreting. So I would say next slide, please. And again, the whole process, we do look at a lot of offered gifts, and we have to be really, really rigorous about how they're going to be utilized and are they filling a gap and so forth. And so I wanted to point out that over the past 10 years, we have created, again, a semi-permanent place for Latin American art in the galleries, also Latinx. It takes some time to shape the narrative in the galleries with the collections that we have. So what you see on the left is a stop that we created about 9 years ago called Latin American Abstraction, because we have a lot of quality abstraction in the collection. And our plan is that this Siqueiros painting, even though it's figurative, it's still abstraction. And so we like blurring boundaries, and we expect a lot of our visitors in terms of understanding that abstraction means a lot of different things depending on the artist. Now, in this case, additional reason we're pretty excited about this painting is it's Los Caudillos de la Revolución, Jinetes. It's a revolutionary rider. So again, really classic subject matter for Siqueiros, who was mainly known as a muralist and very much associated with revolutionary values. This is a study for a mural in Mexico City that is still extant. I mean, it's there. We could go see it if we had a really wonderful field trip. We could go to Mexico City and see the large-scale mural that this painting is a study for. And meanwhile, that'll be something that we bring in the exhibition label when we craft that for next year. And so one other acquisition I want to share with you, if we can go to the next slide. And this is very much Elena's. Yes. Oh, and Nancy also wanted me to remind everybody that, and there's just too many great facts. We need to write a little blog post or something about these pieces, because Siqueiros painted that image in jail. So when I say he had revolutionary values, he was arrested more than once for his activism. So another great fact about that piece. And then another very recent purchase, which if you have been frequenting the museum may not be unfamiliar to you, is this wonderful painting by Bonnie Ramirez, Allegory of Liberation, you see there on the right. And Bonnie just concluded a wonderful solo exhibition in our Global Contemporary Galleries, Cattleya. So this painting was created as part of his the generative process by which he created new material for that exhibition. We go to the next slide. And so I'm putting in on the left there, you can see the installation view. It was, of course, framed by this incredible round frame made up of coconut shells and conch shells. And again, we go through very long conversations in deciding, oh, hey, why didn't we acquire the coconuts and the conch shells? I mean, it's a really good question, because that is a stunning pairing of the painting and this unique frame. He considers these two separate works. He just happened to hang them together. And the issue for us was the complexity of, first of all, caring for the coconuts in the long run, and also the installation process, pretty laborious. Each one of those is mounted directly to the wall. So again, like how easily, we have to think about our capacity as a museum that could use a lot more staff and a lot more funding, by the way. So we decided, and Elena proposed the painting unframed, which is how Bonnie typically shows his works. And it's going to have a lot of wonderful use in the galleries. We talked about or contemplated maybe it could go into our 18th and 19th century galleries, where we really want to expand to talking about the Caribbean and the Americas. And again, the logic for that would be the fact that Bonnie is interested in that colonial period, and you can sort of get that on the dress of this very abstracted kind of goddess figure, who is, maybe we should unpack a little bit what's going on in this painting. It's a pot of crabs being boiled, but by their coloration, we can read that they're still alive. And so they represent the people of the Caribbean, and she's this, again, somewhat surreal, unidentified Afro-Caribbean goddess is going to release the crabs from their suffering. So other more likely place that we would install this work, probably same time frame, because Latinx and Latin American art is American art at the museum. So we would be installing this again sometime next summer, and most likely in the Latin Caribbean body, which is an installation that Elena created about 2 years ago, that you see on the right there, and has just provided a great opportunity for new works coming into the collection and also showcasing works in storage. So I think that's all that I have. And I'm passing it back to Giselle, I think.
Thanks, Tricia. So now we are at the Q&A. I don't see any questions right now, but I do have a question. And so if you want to write any questions while I'm asking this one, please go ahead and do so. So this question is, I'm really curious about the repatriation process, and imagining that will take a long time. Can you?
It is incredibly complex. In terms of the NAGPRA program, we have worked on this in fits and starts over really more than a decade. It requires expertise. It requires a kind of team to be working together. And there are many, many steps. I can say that we have been working with a woman who is expert in provenance, which is the story of the path of an artwork from its creation to its current location, and trying to identify, the first step is to identify what we have, to do that inventory, which is not always easy because we don't know sometimes the origins of these objects. We then, once we have an inventory, we have to publish that in the federal record. Or simultaneously, we are reaching out to tribes that we have identified, and it's a consultation. It starts with a consultation, and then through those conversations, sometimes tribes will say, yes, we would like that object back. Sometimes they don't have the capacity for that, but they defer to another tribal nation. So there's many, many pieces to it. Ultimately, we would have that make the opportunity, and we hope that maybe even by year end, we will be actually able to repatriate a number of these funerary objects. Right now, we have about 7 that we've identified, but we have sent out about 47 letters, and we are getting really robust responses. So you may have seen in the headlines all kinds of, even raids on museums of objects that were looted, proven to be looted. in the cases of mostly ancient Mediterranean objects. We are also looking at that collection to see if there is questionable provenance. In our galleries, we have actually identified objects that require further research. So we want to be very, very transparent about the work we're doing, and we're basically working very hard to do the right thing. Not because we're afraid of being rated, but just to be proactive and do the right, do right by these cultures.
And museums across the country are doing the same thing, I
Yes.
gather. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, Nancy, I see your question. Yeah, we are recording this and we will send the recording out probably in the next week or so to all of you and the rest of the members, because obviously many of them couldn't attend today. So you can definitely forward the link to the presentation to your sister. Okay. I don't see any other questions, but I do have a question for Amy about the do-rag. Are all those buttons, are they all sewn on? Are they glued on? It
No,
looks like there are thousands of
there are.
things.
It's imagine a surface of fabric with every single button edging up against the next, and Bo sews each one down individually. And Youngju Kim, is our conservator, and we visited the studio to see the ball and ice do-rag when it was completed, and Youngju had lots of questions for McCall about the process, and he will supply extra buttons, so if anything ever is broken. But Youngju was very relieved to hear that they're not on a continuous thread, so if one button comes undone, they all come off. They are each sewn down individually, and it's actually quite on the underside, which the artist doesn't want visible for the installation, but the underside, but the backside is quite beautiful. Kind of a spider web pattern that develops from stitching down each button individually.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I don't see any other questions. So if you do have questions after you leave the presentation today, you can email us at membership@newarkmuseumart.org, because I know sometimes after these things, questions pop up. So you can do that, and we would be happy to answer your questions. So that concludes our membership experience for this month. I want to give a big thank you to Catherine, Hanon, Athika, Amy, and Tricia for giving us this wonderful sneak peek at what's coming ahead. So we urge all of you to come to the museum. I know this was a beautiful presentation, but seeing it up close in person, there's nothing like it, right? So just want to let you all know we do not have member experiences scheduled for July and August because many people are on vacations. But please check your email in August and also our website, because there are many other wonderful member events coming this fall, and there will be another inside the collection with the curators in November. So thank you so much for your membership support. Have a wonderful day, and we really hope to see you in the galleries soon. Thanks so much.